Imagine this. You're sitting in your Chicago apartment at 2 a.m., scrolling through your ex's Instagram for the 100th time this week. Your chest feels tight, your stomach is in knots, and you can't shake the feeling that you're literally dying inside. Sound familiar? If you've ever been through a breakup, you know that the pain isn't just emotional. It's physical, overwhelming, and sometimes feels like it might actually kill you. Here's the thing that might surprise you. Philosophers have been studying this exact pain for over 2,000 years. And what they discovered can actually help you get through this nightmare you're living right now. I've gotten tons of requests lately to talk about breakups, and I get it. Whether you're dealing with a fresh breakup in New York City, trying to move on in Los Angeles, or anywhere in between, the pain is universal. That's why I'm starting a whole series looking at different philosophies and what they can teach us about healing from heartbreak. Today, we're diving into Stoicism. And trust me, these ancient Romans knew a thing or two about dealing with loss. Now, you might be thinking, what could some old dead guys possibly know about my modern dating life? Here's the crazy part. Even though we live in a world of dating apps, social media, and completely different relationship norms than ancient Greece or Rome, the core human emotions haven't changed one bit. Lust, attachment, anger, jealousy. Your great-great-great-grandmother felt the exact same things when her heart got broken. Think about it this way. Nature operates on geological time. While we've built smartphones and dating apps and completely revolutionized how we meet people, our brains and bodies are still running on the same emotional software from thousands of years ago. That racing heart, those sleepless nights, that obsessive thinking. It's all the same biological response that humans have been experiencing since the beginning of time. This is exactly why ancient philosophy like Stoicism isn't just relevant. It's essential. Sure, we understand more about brain chemistry and neuroscience now, but that doesn't make the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, or Seneca any less powerful. These guys figured out truths about human nature that still apply whether you're dealing with a breakup in ancient Rome or modern-day Miami. But here's what we need to understand first. Why does this hurt so much? Why does losing someone feel like actual torture? The answer lies in understanding what's really happening in your brain and body when you fall in love. And more importantly, what happens when that love gets ripped away from you. 1. Your brain on love and why it hurts when it's gone. Let's talk about what actually happens when you fall in love. Picture Sarah, a marketing executive in Manhattan. She meets Jake at a coffee shop in Soho, and within weeks, she's completely obsessed. She can't focus at work. She's checking her phone every 30 seconds, and suddenly Jake is the first thing she thinks about when she wakes up and the last thing on her mind before she falls asleep. Sound familiar? Here's what's really going on. Sarah's brain is basically on drugs. When we fall in love, our bodies become literal chemical factories, pumping out dopamine, norepinephrine, and a cocktail of other feel-good chemicals that create an intense natural high. It's not just poetic language when people say they're addicted to someone. There's actual science behind it. This chemical rush serves a very specific biological purpose: bonding and reproduction. From an evolutionary standpoint, these intense feelings exist to make us want to stick around long enough to create and raise offspring together. Your brain doesn't care about your career goals or your 5-year plan. It just wants you to bond with this person and make babies. That's why falling in love can feel so all-consuming and irrational. But here's the kicker, and this is where things get really interesting from a philosophical perspective. This intense chemical high is temporary. Always. no exceptions. What we call the honeymoon phase isn't just a cute relationship term. It's a biological reality. Those rose-colored glasses you're wearing, they're chemically induced and they're designed to come off. Think about it. If we stayed in that obsessive, can't eat, can't sleep state of early love forever, we'd never get anything done. We wouldn't be able to hold jobs, maintain friendships, or function as productive members of society. So nature has built in an expiration date for this chemical cocktail. Usually, somewhere between 6 months to 2 years, those intense feelings start to fade. This is where a lot of relationships hit their first major crisis. When the chemicals wear off, you start seeing your partner as they really are, not the perfect fantasy your drugged-up brain created. Some couples navigate this transition and build something deeper. Others realize they were never really compatible in the first place. They were just high on brain chemicals. But even when the honeymoon phase ends, something else often remains: deep attachment. This is different from the initial chemical rush. Attachment is more about familiarity, comfort, shared experiences, and emotional dependence. It's the feeling that this person has become part of your identity, part of your daily routine, part of who you are. Now, here's the million-dollar question. Is this attachment wrong? Should we feel bad about being attached to someone? The honest answer is that at some point, we can't really help it. If you've been with someone for months or years, if you've shared intimate moments and built a life together, of course you're going to be attached. That's completely human and normal. And this is where Stoic philosophy becomes incredibly powerful. We can change how we approach this attachment. We can change how we think about what it means when that attachment gets broken. Because here's what happens when someone you're deeply attached to suddenly exits your life. Your brain goes into panic mode. Remember Sarah from Manhattan? When Jake breaks up with her after 8 months together, her brain doesn't just miss him. It goes into full withdrawal mode, just like someone coming off drugs. The dopamine receptors that got used to their daily Jake fix are suddenly starving. Her stress hormones spike. Her sleep gets disrupted. She literally feels sick. This is why breakups don't just hurt emotionally. They hurt physically. Your brain is experiencing the same kind of distress it would feel if you were physically injured or under serious threat. The pain is real, it's intense, and it's completely overwhelming. But here's where the power of rational thinking comes in, something the Stoics were absolute masters at. While we can't just magically make the pain disappear, we can examine the beliefs and thoughts that are making that pain worse. We can look at the stories we're telling ourselves about what this breakup means, and we can challenge the assumptions that are keeping us stuck in suffering. The Stoics understood something crucial. It's not the events themselves that cause us the most suffering. It's our judgments and beliefs about those events. The breakup happened, the attachment is broken, and yes, that hurts. But the real torture comes from the stories we tell ourselves about what this means for our future, our worth, and our ability to be happy. This brings us to the first destructive belief that keeps people trapped in breakup hell. A belief that seems so obvious and true that most people never even question it. But the Stoics would tell you that this belief is not only wrong, it's the root of unnecessary suffering. 2. The lie that keeps you stuck. I need them to be happy. Meet David, a software engineer in Seattle. 3 months after his girlfriend Emma moved out of their shared apartment, he's still a mess. He can't enjoy his morning coffee because they used to drink it together. He can't watch Netflix because every show reminds him of their Sunday binges. He's convinced that without Emma, he'll never be truly happy again. His friends keep telling him, there are plenty of fish in the sea, but David just shakes his head. You don't understand, he says. Emma was the one. I need her to be happy. This is the first and most dangerous lie that keeps people trapped after a breakup. The belief that you need that specific person to be happy. It sounds so romantic, so devoted, so true to the depth of your feelings. But according to Stoic philosophy, this belief is not only wrong, it's the source of most of your suffering. Let's break down why this belief is so destructive. When David says he needs Emma to be happy, he's essentially saying that his emotional well-being depends entirely on something outside his control. Think about how terrifying that is. He's handed over the keys to his happiness to another human being, someone who has their own life, their own goals, their own free will to choose whether or not they want to be with him. Now, David's friends mean well when they say, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Mathematically, they're absolutely right. There are literally millions of potential partners out there. But here's why this advice doesn't actually help. It still keeps David trapped in the same fundamental error. Whether there's 1 fish, 10 fish, or 1 billion fish in the sea, the fish is still something external to David. It's still something he might not be able to catch, something that could swim away at any moment, something completely beyond his control. This is where Stoicism offers a radically different perspective that can actually set you free. The Stoics believe that virtue, living according to wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline, is the only thing you need to be happy. Everything else, including romantic relationships, is what they call a preferred indifferent. Now, before you roll your eyes and think this sounds cold or unrealistic, let me explain what preferred indifferent actually means. It doesn't mean relationships don't matter or that love is invaluable. Of course, having someone to share your life with is wonderful. Of course, intimacy and companionship add richness to human experience. The Stoics aren't asking you to become an emotionless robot. What preferred indifferent means is that while relationships are nice to have, they're not mandatory for living a good life. They're preferred meaning we naturally want them, but they're indifferent to our core happiness and well-being. Think of it like having a beautiful view from your apartment. Is it nice? Absolutely. Does it enhance your daily experience? Sure. But if you move to a place without the view, would your fundamental capacity for happiness be destroyed? Of course not. Here's the liberating truth the Stoics discovered. Everything you need to be happy is already within your control. Your ability to act with integrity, to treat others with kindness, to face challenges with courage, to learn and grow from difficult experiences. These things don't depend on whether Emma comes back to David or whether David finds someone new. Let's look at this from a practical standpoint. Think about the happiest, most fulfilled people you know. Are they all in perfect relationships? Probably not. You probably know some single people who are genuinely content and some married people who are miserable. You might know people who've been through devastating divorces and emerged stronger, and others who are in relationships but still struggle with depression or anxiety. This isn't to say that relationships don't contribute to happiness. They absolutely can. But they're not the foundation of happiness. When you make another person the foundation of your happiness, you're building your emotional house on sand. That person could leave, they could change, or they could die. If your happiness depends on them, you're always one phone call away from devastation. But when you build your happiness on virtue, on being the kind of person you're proud to be, regardless of your relationship status, you're building on bedrock. No one can take that away from you. Emma can leave David, but she can't take away his capacity for courage, wisdom, or integrity. This doesn't mean David should stop wanting love or stop hoping to find a great relationship. It means he should want these things from a place of strength rather than desperation. When you know you're okay on your own, you can enter relationships as a whole person sharing your life with another whole person, rather than as half a person desperately seeking completion. Here's what this looks like in practice. Instead of spending his evenings obsessing over Emma's social media and wondering if she's dating someone new, David could focus on becoming the best version of himself. He could pursue hobbies that make him feel alive, strengthen friendships that bring out his best qualities, and maybe volunteer for causes he cares about. He could use this painful period as an opportunity to discover who he is when he's not defined by a relationship. The irony is that people who've learned to be happy on their own often become more attractive partners. There's something magnetic about someone who's genuinely content with their life, who brings positive energy rather than neediness to a relationship. When you stop desperately needing someone else to complete you, you become someone others want to be around. But this first destructive belief is just the beginning. There's another lie that can be even more toxic, even more damaging to your peace of mind. It's a belief that breeds anger, resentment, and a sense of injustice that can poison your heart for years. This second belief is about ownership, entitlement, and the dangerous illusion that we have a right to possess another human being. 3. Why you don't own your ex, even if you were married. Let me tell you about Maria, a teacher from Phoenix who's been married to Carlos for 12 years. They have 2 kids, a mortgage, and what everyone thought was a solid marriage. Then Carlos drops a bombshell. He's been having an affair with a coworker, and he wants a divorce. Maria's world explodes. But it's not just the betrayal that's eating her alive. It's the rage. How dare he? She screams to her sister. I gave him the best years of my life. We made vows. He belongs to me, not her. This is the second destructive belief that tortures people after breakups. The idea that we're entitled to another person. That somehow, through dating, commitment, or marriage, we gain ownership rights over another human being. This belief is incredibly common, and it's also incredibly toxic because it breeds anger, jealousy, and a sense of injustice that can consume you from the inside out. Let's be honest, this feeling of entitlement is completely understandable. When you've invested years of your life in someone, when you've made sacrifices, when you've built a life together, it's natural to feel like you have some kind of claim on that person. When they leave, especially for someone else, it feels like theft. Like something that rightfully belonged to you has been stolen. But here's where Stoic philosophy offers a perspective that can actually free you from this torment. You never owned that person in the first place. Not even in marriage. Not even after decades together. Other people aren't possessions. They're independent human beings with their own free will, their own desires, their own right to make choices about their lives, even when those choices hurt us. I know this sounds harsh when you're in pain, but stay with me because this understanding can actually liberate you from years of bitterness and resentment. Think about it this way. The concepts of monogamy, sexual exclusivity, and till death do us part are social constructs. They're agreements we make, traditions we follow, but they're not laws of nature. Throughout history and across cultures, relationship structures have varied wildly. What we consider normal in modern American dating culture would seem bizarre to people from other times and places. This isn't to say these agreements don't matter. They absolutely do. When someone breaks a promise, especially something as significant as wedding vows, the betrayal is real and the pain is valid. But the Stoics would tell you that clinging to anger about broken promises only prolongs your suffering without changing anything. Here's the reality of our current dating landscape. With increasing sexual freedom, dating apps that offer endless options, and the declining sacredness many people feel toward marriage, relationships are more fragile than ever. Breakups are common. Infidelity happens. Divorce rates are high. You can rage against these realities, or you can accept them and protect your peace of mind accordingly. This is where the Stoic philosopher Epictetus offers some of the most profound wisdom ever written about loss. Epictetus knew something about losing what you love. He was born a slave, so he understood better than most that nothing in life is truly yours in any permanent sense. He wrote, "Never say of anything, 'I have lost it,' but 'I have returned it.' Is your child dead? It is returned. Is your wife dead? She is returned. Is your estate taken away? Well, and is it not that likewise returned? But he who took it away is a bad man. What difference does it make to you who the giver assigns to take it back? While he gives it to you to possess, take care of it, but don't view it as your own, just as travelers view a hotel." This might sound cold at first, but think about what Epictetus is really saying. He's suggesting that we think of everything in our lives, including the people we love, as temporary gifts rather than permanent possessions. When Maria was married to Carlos, she wasn't his owner and he wasn't hers. They were two people who chose to share their lives for a period of time. Now that time has ended, and Carlos has been returned to the universe, so to speak. The hotel metaphor is particularly powerful. When you stay in a hotel, you don't get emotionally attached to the room. You enjoy it while you're there, you take care of it, but you don't have a meltdown when checkout time comes because you never expected to own the room in the first place. You understood from the beginning that your stay was temporary. What if we approached relationships the same way? What if, instead of thinking, "This person is mine," we thought, "I'm grateful for the time we have together, however long that might be." This doesn't mean loving less deeply or caring less about the relationship. It means loving without the desperate clinging that comes from thinking you own someone. Here's what this looks like practically for Maria. Instead of spending her energy raging about Carlos belonging to her, she could focus on the fact that she had 12 years of shared experiences, 2 beautiful children, and memories that no one can take away. Carlos didn't steal anything from her. He gave her 12 years of his life, and now he's choosing to give his time to someone else. It hurts, but he has that right. This perspective doesn't excuse Carlos's dishonesty or minimize the pain of betrayal, but it does free Maria from the exhausting anger that comes from believing she was robbed of something that was rightfully hers. When you stop trying to own people, you stop feeling like a victim when they exercise their freedom to leave. The jealousy that often accompanies breakups is really just fear of loss combined with a sense of ownership. That person is mine, and someone else is trying to take them. But what if that person was never yours to begin with? What if they were always free to choose, and for a while they chose you, and now they're choosing differently? This doesn't make the pain go away, but it does eliminate the additional suffering that comes from righteous indignation. Instead of being heartbroken and furious, you're just heartbroken. And heartbreak, while painful, is much easier to heal from than heartbreak plus rage plus a sense of injustice. But even when you intellectually understand that you don't own your ex, even when you accept that relationships are temporary, there's still another belief that can keep you trapped in suffering. It's the belief that whispers in your ear during those dark 3 a.m. moments when the pain feels unbearable. You'll never get over this. This pain will last forever. You'll never love again like this. This final destructive belief might be the most paralyzing of all. 4. The truth about never getting over someone. It's 3 a.m. in Atlanta, and Jessica is lying in bed staring at the ceiling. 6 months ago, her fiancé, Michael, called off their engagement just 2 weeks before the wedding. The invitations had been sent, the dress was hanging in her closet, and their whole future was planned out. Now, half a year later, the pain feels just as sharp as it did that first night. Her friends keep telling her she'll get over it, but Jessica knows better. "You don't understand," she tells herself. "What Michael and I had was different. It was once in a lifetime. I'll never get over him. I'll never love anyone the way I loved him." This is the third and perhaps most paralyzing, destructive belief that keeps people trapped after a breakup. The conviction that you'll never get over this person, that this pain will last forever, that you've lost your one shot at true love. It's a belief that can keep you stuck for years, turning what should be a healing process into a prison sentence of endless suffering. Here's why this belief feels so true when you're in the middle of heartbreak. The pain is so intense, so all-consuming, that it seems impossible it could ever fade. When every song reminds you of them, when you can't drive past certain places without crying, when their absence feels like a physical wound that never stops bleeding, how could you possibly imagine feeling any different? But the Stoics understood something profound about the nature of existence that can offer real comfort in these dark moments. Marcus Aurelius, who wasn't just a philosopher but also the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, wrote extensively about the constant change that defines all life. Even from his position of ultimate power and privilege, he recognized that nothing, absolutely nothing, stays the same forever. He wrote, "Some things are rushing into existence, others out of it. Some of what now exists is already gone. Change and flux constantly remake the world, just as the incessant progression of time remakes eternity." Think about what Marcus is telling us here. Everything in existence is in constant motion. Stars are born and die. Mountains rise and erode. Empires fall. And yes, even the most intense emotional pain eventually transforms. This isn't just philosophical poetry. It's observable reality. Think about other times in your life when you were absolutely certain you'd never get over something. Maybe it was the death of a beloved pet when you were a child, or not getting into your dream college, or losing a job you thought defined you. At the time, each of these felt permanent, insurmountable. But here you are, having survived all of them. The cliché "time heals all wounds" exists because it's true. Not because time magically erases pain, but because time allows for the natural process of change that governs everything in the universe. Your brain, your heart, your entire emotional landscape is constantly evolving. The neural pathways that fire when you think about your ex, the chemical responses that create that stabbing pain in your chest, these are all subject to the same laws of change that govern everything else. But here's what's crucial to understand. This healing process doesn't mean you'll forget this person or that what you had wasn't real or important. Jessica's love for Michael was genuine. The pain she's feeling is valid. The relationship mattered. But the intensity of both the love and the pain will naturally shift and change over time, just like everything else in existence. Think of it like a physical injury. When you break your arm, the initial pain is excruciating. You can't imagine your arm ever feeling normal again. But gradually, day by day, the bone heals, the swelling goes down, the pain lessens. 6 months later, you might have a scar or some stiffness that reminds you of the injury, but you're not in constant agony. The same principle applies to emotional wounds. This doesn't mean you should just passively wait for time to heal you. There are things you can do to work with the natural healing process rather than against it. But the first step is accepting that healing is not only possible but inevitable if you don't actively prevent it. Here's where many people sabotage their own recovery. They fight the natural process of change. They cling to the pain because it feels like the last connection to the person they lost. They resist moving forward because it feels like betraying the relationship or admitting it didn't matter. Jessica might unconsciously believe that getting over Michael would somehow diminish what they had together. But the Stoics would tell Jessica that honoring her relationship with Michael doesn't require eternal suffering. In fact, the opposite is true. The best way to honor what they shared is to learn from it, grow from it, and use those lessons to build a better life. Staying stuck in pain doesn't preserve the relationship. It just wastes the life Michael once cared about. Marcus Aurelius also reminds us that our current pain, no matter how intense, is just one moment in the vast expanse of our existence. He writes about stepping back and viewing your life from a broader perspective, like looking at Earth from space. From that vantage point, even the most devastating breakup is just one chapter in a much larger story. This doesn't minimize your pain, it contextualizes it. Jessica's heartbreak is real and significant, but it's not the end of her story. She's 28 years old. If she lives to 80, she has 52 more years of life ahead of her. Are those 5 decades really going to be defined by 6 months of heartbreak? Only if she chooses to let them be. The truth about never getting over someone is that it's almost always a choice, not a fate. Yes, some people carry torch flames for decades, but they're actively feeding those flames. They're revisiting old photos, checking social media, telling themselves stories about the one that got away. They're choosing to keep the wound fresh rather than allowing it to heal. But what if you made a different choice? What if you decided that while this relationship was important and the pain is real, it's not going to define the rest of your life? What if you chose to trust in the natural process of change and healing that governs all existence? This brings us to the practical question. How do you actually work with this pain instead of against it? How do you honor your grief without drowning in it? How do you heal without feeling like you're betraying the love you lost? The answer lies in understanding how to process emotional pain in a healthy way, something the Stoics had profound insights about. 5. How to actually heal without destroying yourself. Let me tell you about 2 different people dealing with breakups in very different ways. First, there's Ryan from Denver. When his girlfriend of 3 years, Ashley, moved out last month, Ryan decided he was going to get over it as fast as possible. He's been hitting the bars every night, drinking until he can't remember her name, hooking up with random people on dating apps, and telling everyone he's totally fine. He's also been working 70-hour weeks to avoid going home to their empty apartment. Then there's Lisa from Boston. When her husband of 8 years asked for a divorce, she did something different. She took a week off work, let herself cry until she had no tears left, called her therapist, and started going to yoga classes. Some days she forces herself to meet friends for coffee even when she doesn't want to. Other days, she stays home with a book and lets herself feel sad. She's not rushing the process, but she's also not wallowing. Can you guess which one of these people is actually healing? The pain you feel after a breakup is not your enemy. It's information. It's your emotional system processing a significant loss. Fighting this pain, trying to numb it, or pretending it doesn't exist doesn't make it go away. It just drives it underground, where it can cause even more damage. Ryan's approach might seem stronger, but he's actually making his healing process much longer and more complicated. Here's what I learned the hard way from my own breakups. Trying to escape the pain through alcohol, drugs, or other substances is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. It might temporarily mask the symptoms, but it doesn't address the underlying injury. In fact, it often makes things worse because you're adding new problems, hangovers, poor decisions, regret on top of the original pain. I used to think that getting drunk enough to forget was somehow helping me heal. All it actually did was pause the healing process. Every time I numbed the pain, I was essentially hitting the reset button on my emotional recovery. The grief would still be there the next morning, just as fresh as ever, but now I also felt like garbage physically. But there's another extreme that's equally unhealthy. Complete isolation. After my worst breakup, I basically became a hermit for months. I convinced myself that I needed to process my feelings, but what I was really doing was marinating in my misery. I'd spend entire weekends replaying every conversation, analyzing every text message, and essentially torturing myself with memories. The Stoics understood that healing from grief requires a delicate balance. You need to acknowledge the pain without drowning in it. You need to feel your feelings without being consumed by them. From my experience, the healthiest approach is a combination of active engagement with the world and intentional moments of solitude to process what you're going through. This is where the wisdom of Seneca becomes incredibly valuable. Seneca was exiled to Corsica after being falsely accused, losing everything he'd built in Rome. He wrote a letter to his mother to console her because she was mourning his absence. In this letter, he reveals something profound about the timing of emotional healing. He wrote, "I knew that I must not oppose your grief during its first transports, lest my very attempts at consolation might irritate it and add fuel to it. For in diseases also, there is nothing more hurtful than medicine applied too soon. I waited, therefore, until it exhausted itself by its own violence, and being weakened by time, so that it was able to bear remedies, would allow itself to be handled and touched." This is brilliant psychological insight from 2,000 years ago. Seneca understood that there's a natural rhythm to grief. There's an initial shock phase where the pain is so intense that trying to fix it or rush through it actually makes things worse. During this phase, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is simply be human. Let the tears flow. Feel the full weight of what you've lost. But this initial phase doesn't last forever. After the first wave of grief exhausts itself, that's when you can start applying the remedies. That's when Stoic philosophy, therapy, self-care, and active healing strategies become helpful rather than irritating. So, what does healthy healing actually look like in practice? For Lisa in Boston, it means honoring both sides of the equation. Some days, she gives herself permission to be sad. She'll stay home, listen to sad music, and let herself fully feel the loss. She's not trying to be strong or pretend she's over it. But other days, she forces herself to engage with life. She meets friends for coffee even when she doesn't feel like it. She goes to yoga classes where she's surrounded by other people. She takes walks in the park, goes to museums, tries new restaurants. She's not doing these things because she feels great. She's doing them because she knows that isolation will keep her stuck. This balance is key. Pure isolation leads to depression and obsessive thinking. Pure distraction leads to suppressed emotions that will eventually explode. But the combination of processing and engaging, of feeling and doing, of solitude and connection, that's where real healing happens. Here's what this might look like for you. Maybe Monday evening, you let yourself have a good cry while listening to your breakup playlist. But on Tuesday, you force yourself to go to that book club meeting. On Wednesday, you might journal about your feelings or call a therapist. Thursday, you try that new hiking trail you've been meaning to explore. The key is not to get stuck in either extreme. Don't spend weeks in bed avoiding the world, but also don't pack your schedule so full that you never have time to process what you're going through. Grief needs both expression and integration. Simply put, as Seneca discovered, let the tears flow. Be human first. And when the initial shock wanes, that's when ancient wisdom can serve as a bandage to help the wound heal properly. What 2,000-year-old wisdom teaches about modern heartbreak. So here we are, at the end of our journey through one of life's most painful experiences. We've explored why breakups feel like torture, understood the brain chemistry behind attachment, and most importantly, we've dismantled the 3 lies that keep people trapped in unnecessary suffering. Let's recap what we've learned from these ancient philosophers who faced their own losses over 2 millennia ago. First, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca would tell you that your happiness doesn't depend on any other person. Not your ex, not your future partner, not anyone. Your capacity for joy, peace, and fulfillment comes from within, from living according to your values and virtues. Relationships are beautiful additions to life, but they're not the foundation of a meaningful existence. Second, the Stoics would remind you that you never owned your ex in the first place. That person was always free to choose their own path, just as you are free to choose yours. The anger and sense of injustice you might feel come from a false belief about possession and entitlement. When you let go of the need to own someone, you free yourself from the rage that poisons your healing. Third, these ancient philosophers understood something we often forget in our pain. Everything changes. The intensity of your current heartbreak, no matter how overwhelming it feels right now, is not permanent. Just as the seasons change, just as day turns to night, your emotional landscape will transform. The question isn't whether you'll heal, it's whether you'll work with that natural process or against it. But here's what I want you to remember most. This isn't just about getting over a breakup. This is about becoming the kind of person who can face any loss, any disappointment, any challenge with grace and resilience. The Stoics didn't develop these ideas to help people through romantic heartbreak. They developed them to help humans thrive in a world where loss is inevitable. Whether you're dealing with a fresh breakup in New York City trying to rebuild after a divorce in Los Angeles, or anywhere in between, you now have tools that have been tested by thousands of years of human experience. You have wisdom that can carry you through not just this heartbreak, but whatever challenges life throws at you next. Your pain is real, your grief is valid, and your healing is possible. The philosophers we've discussed today faced wars, exile, and the loss of children, yet they found ways to maintain their peace and even their joy. If they could do it under those circumstances, you can certainly do it with a breakup. Remember, you're not just surviving this experience, you're using it to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. That's the Stoic way. If this video helped you see your situation differently, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear these ideas. And if you want more practical philosophy for modern life challenges, make sure to subscribe to Stoic Vivu. We're building a community of people who believe ancient wisdom can help us navigate contemporary problems. Your healing journey starts now. The Stoics are cheering you on.